A modern instant breakfast costs several dollars and leaves you hungry by 9 in the morning. 80 years ago, mothers fed families of 6 on pennies a meal, using raw grains and a drop of hot fat, creating a meal that held working men over until well past noon. When modern dietitians examine these improvised meals, they find a consistent pattern. The heavy, scrap-based recipes served in Depression-era farmhouse kitchens delivered more balanced macronutrients than the majority of processed cereals found on grocery store shelves today. In 1943, a dozen eggs cost 19 cents. A pound of oats ran about a nickel. But strict wartime rationing meant that even with cash in hand, you could only buy what your government-issued stamp book allowed. Millions of American families woke up to pantries that were effectively bare. Feeding a large household on 30 cents a day required a specialized skill set. Mothers learned to stretch absolute minimums, relying on basic cast iron heat and save tins of bacon grease to turn stale scraps into vital calories. These forgotten recipes show a practical understanding of nutrition that was common across the country. We didn't lose this knowledge by accident. Our cooking habits shifted toward products that were easier to sell. Men pulling shifts in coal mines and shipyards were at the table by 5 in the morning. Their bodies required slow-burning energy to survive hours of continuous manual labor without physical failure. The morning fuel started with a 5-cent base of complex carbohydrates, a heavy pot of salted oats or thick cornmeal mush. To give it staying power, cooks finished the grain with cheap animal fat, stirring in a solid spoonful of lard or saved bacon drippings. This chart shows how the body processes that heavy meal. The cheap animal fat deliberately slows down the digestion of the complex carbohydrates. That creates a steady, flat, elevated curve of energy release that bridges the gap from pre-dawn to the midday whistle. If we overlay the biological reaction caused by the refined sugars in modern convenient breakfast foods, the pattern changes. You get an immediate spike, followed by a crash to zero by mid-morning. The human body does not register the poverty of the ingredients. It only recognizes the fuel source required to get through a brutal physical day. By 6:30, the rest of the house was awake. This triggered the mother's daily operational challenge, taking whatever disparate scraps remained from the night before and turning them into morning calories for growing children. The 1940s kitchen operated as a closed-loop economy. Food waste did not exist. Every byproduct, down to the crispy browned bits of pork skin left over after rendering lard, was repurposed to fortify the next meal. When bread went completely stale and hard, it was torn apart and soaked in milk and egg to create a dense, custardy bread pudding. Those eggs were often sourced straight from the property. Urban and suburban families regularly kept backyard laying hens, ensuring an independent supply of high-quality protein. Cold leftover starches received the same treatment. Boiled potatoes were grated down, mixed with trace amounts of saved fat and a pinch of flour, and fried flat in a skillet into dense, heavy pancakes. When the pantry was completely depleted, or when a child fell sick, the safety net was milk toast. Stale bread soaked in warm, salted milk provided the cheapest, most easily digestible calories available to a household running on empty. Driven by poverty, maternal habits created effective macronutrient profiles. These zero-waste systems delivered exact ratios of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates to children without throwing away a single cent. Getting through the freezing winter months presented a major logistical problem. Fresh produce was scarce and heavily rationed, making essential nutrients like vitamin A and vitamin C nearly impossible to source through modern supply chains. The solutions were highly localized. A 9-cent can of plain tomatoes poured hot over toast solved the vitamin C deficit. In rural households, sweet potatoes stored in cool barns were roasted overnight in the banked coals of a wood stove. Split open inside a lard biscuit, that soft flesh provided sugar and vitamin A. Guaranteeing that winter supply required immense physical labor. Women spent August and September putting up hundreds of quart jars of tomatoes, beans, and peaches to ensure the family wouldn't go deficient in February. The 1940s pantry functioned as a year-round logistics hub. It was the result of months of planning to ensure survival through the leanest times of the year. That system began to dismantle in the 1950s. Vegetable oils arrived in grocery stores. Instant cardboard canisters replaced raw ingredients, and sheer convenience became the new metric for a successful morning. The cereal industry used aggressive marketing to associate traditional cooking fats with shame. They successfully convinced the public to abandon the skillet and rebranded boxes of processed sugar as a complete breakfast. Consumers made a specific economic trade-off. We abandoned honest, nutrient-dense ingredients that cost pennies and exchanged them for expensive, artificially colored commodities. If you want to recalibrate what eating well looks like, check the universal standard of the 1940s morning. You need exactly 3 things: a nickel of raw steel cut oats, a dime of evaporated milk, a spoonful of brown sugar. Eating well comes down to practical knowledge. We didn't lose these skills by accident. We traded them for convenience because that was a more profitable model for the food industry.